They told you hard work is the key to success. They lied. If it were true, the poorest laborer would be king, and the richest rulers would toil in the fields. Today, we expose the truth Machiavelli understood, why the powerful never work hardest, yet always win. They told you a story since you were a child, that if you work harder than anyone else, if you wake up earlier, stay up later, push through every obstacle, and grind until your hands bleed, you will eventually get what you deserve. It is the sweet lullaby of the masses. It makes the poor man feel noble in his suffering, and it makes the ruler feel safe upon his throne. But here is the truth Machiavelli saw centuries ago. Hard work alone is not a ladder to power, it is the cage that keeps you from climbing. Walk through the streets of any city, and you will see the same pattern. The hardest workers are not the ones wearing silk robes or gold rings. They are the ones with bent backs, tired eyes, and worn hands. The fisherman rising before dawn, the builder sweating in the sun. The servant running from command to command, all laboring endlessly, yet remaining exactly where they began. They are not failing because they are lazy. They are failing because they have been sold an illusion. This illusion is powerful because it feels moral. It feels just. The idea that you will be rewarded for your effort appeals to our sense of fairness. But in the game of power, fairness is a fiction. The world rewards not the one who works hardest, but the one who works with the greatest leverage. And leverage is born from position, influence, and control, not from how many hours you spend breaking your body. The rulers of Florence in Machiavelli's time understood this perfectly. They did not build their wealth by hammering stones or carrying sacks of grain. They directed others to do those tasks while they focused on the moves that mattered, securing alliances, removing rivals, manipulating trade, and controlling information. They worked, yes, but their work was strategic, calculated, and invisible to the common eye. Hard work without power is like pouring water into a cracked jar. No matter how much you give, it leaks away into the pockets of those above you. The more you labor without strategy, the more valuable you become, not to yourself, but to the person who profits from your effort. And here lies the cruel genius of the system. The belief in hard work as a virtue keeps you in your place willingly. You imprison yourself, thinking the key is in the next hour, the next sacrifice, the next sleepless night. In Machiavelli's eyes, the masses toil not because they must, but because they are made to believe toil is noble. The harder they work, the easier they are to control. And while they are bent over in labor, their eyes fixed on the ground, they cannot see the hands above them pulling the strings. In the game of power, the battlefield is not the field of toil, but the map of the mind. Machiavelli understood this with a clarity that made him both feared and respected. He saw that a man who spends his life pushing a cart will never move further than the road beneath his feet, while the man who studies the terrain, anticipates the turns, and chooses when to strike can cover more ground in a single step than the laborer can in a lifetime. This is the difference between sweat and strategy. Sweat is honest, it is visible, it is the currency of the working man. But in politics, in business, in the pursuit of power, honesty is rarely the winning coin. Strategy, on the other hand, is invisible until it strikes, and by the time it does, the outcome is already decided. Machiavelli compared the rulers of his time to foxes and lions. The lion has strength, but the fox survives because it knows when to hide, when to deceive, and when to take without warning. Strength without cunning is a tool for others to use. Cunning without strength is often enough to bend the strong to your will. The man who works endlessly with no strategy is like the ox, steady, predictable, and useful only to the one holding the reins. He may cover many miles, but never chooses his own path. The strategist is different. He may appear idle, even lazy to the casual observer, because his work is not measured in sweat. It is measured in moments, the right conversation, the right alliance, the right betrayal at the right time. His victories come not from constant motion, but from knowing when to move and when to wait. Look at the courts of Renaissance Italy. While craftsmen, soldiers, and servants gave their bodies to the service of others, the most powerful figures spent their time in whispered meetings, studying rivalries, planting rumors and waiting for weaknesses to reveal themselves. A single calculated move could replace months, even years, of physical labor. One word placed in the right ear could topple a rival who had worked tirelessly to build his position. The tragedy is that most people cannot accept this truth. They believe motion itself is progress, that the appearance of effort is the same as advancement. Machiavelli knew this was a fatal mistake. Effort without direction is a fire that burns brightly but consumes itself to ash. Strategy takes that same flame and directs it, focusing the heat where it will cause the greatest damage. To the strategist, every task is weighed not by how much energy it costs, but by how much advantage it delivers. He will not spend his life building someone else's fortress when he could be finding the single weak stone that will bring it crashing down. He will not race endlessly to the finish line when he can quietly move it closer to himself. And when others are exhausted from their constant running, he will walk past them, fresh and victorious, because he never confused movement with progress. Throughout history, the greatest rulers have understood a dangerous truth. Power is not built by the strongest arms or the hardest backs, but by the ability to direct the labor of others toward your own ends. Machiavelli saw it clearly in the palaces of Florence. The nobility did not rise before the sun to till the land or build the walls. They did not sweat under the summer heat or shiver through the winter frost. That was the work of the people below them, and those people performed it willingly, believing their toil was the road to reward. But the road was a circle, and every step they took brought them back to the same place. While the masters grew richer, safer, and more powerful, the genius of the ruling class has always been in selling the illusion of opportunity. They tell the worker, if you work harder, you can be like us. They feed stories of peasants who rose to become merchants, merchants who became lords. These tales are rare exceptions dressed as common possibilities, designed to keep the majority chasing a prize they will never hold. It is not cruelty for its own sake, it is a strategy. When people believe their suffering is temporary, they will endure almost anything. In Machiavelli's time, the Medici family perfected this art. They kept Florence's economy thriving not by working harder than anyone else, but by ensuring everyone else worked harder for them. Every coin minted, every stone set in place. Every piece of cloth woven was the product of another man's hands, yet the credit and the profit flowed upward to the palace. The masters understood that physical work created value, but it was control over that value that created power. Even in war, the pattern was the same. Soldiers fought and bled in the name of their city or their lord, but the rewards, land, titles, influence were gathered by the commanders who directed them. The men on the battlefield believed their courage and sacrifice would elevate them, yet most returned home to the same lives they had left behind. While their leaders carved out greater domains, the worker's strength is the foundation, but the master's will is the architect. And here is the unspoken brilliance of this system. The masters rarely need to enforce it with chains or whips. The belief in hard work as a moral path to success becomes its own leash. The worker polices himself, staying longer, lifting heavier, producing more, all while thinking he is climbing. But in truth, he is only lifting the master higher. The ruling class does not have to steal from him openly. They simply arrange the game so that his winnings are always less than his effort, and the remainder flows to them. Machiavelli warned that this is not an accident of history, it is an intentional design. The rulers do not merely inherit power. They protect and expand it by ensuring the workers never question why they must give so much while receiving so little. They know that as long as the worker's mind is fixed on his task, it will never be free to imagine a different position. Machiavelli understood that to rise above the masses, one must master the art of appearing industrious while secretly directing their true efforts toward influence, control, and timing. The common man believes success is earned through endless visible labor, through proving himself to the world by showing his exhaustion. The strategist knows that the most decisive victories are prepared in silence, hidden from the eyes of both enemies and allies until the moment they are revealed. Working smart in the shadows does not mean avoiding effort. It means choosing precisely where that effort will yield the greatest advantage. A single hour spent in the right conversation, planting a thought in the mind of someone with influence, can outweigh months of backbreaking physical work. Power is not built in the open marketplace where everyone can see your moves. It is constructed in the private chambers where deals are struck and alliances are formed before the first blow is ever delivered. Machiavelli often compared political maneuvering to a game of chess. The strongest player is not the one who moves the most pieces or captures the most pawns in a frenzy of action. The strongest player is the one who understands the flow of the game so deeply that each move forces the opponent into a weaker position until checkmate becomes inevitable. The strategist's moves may look slow, even hesitant to an outsider, but each is calculated to shape the battlefield before the battle begins. In the courts of Renaissance Italy, the most dangerous figures were rarely the ones constantly in public view. They were the advisors whispering into the ear of a prince, or envoys who appeared harmless while carrying the weight of secret negotiations, the merchants who funded one side of a war while quietly profiting from both. They played the role of loyal servant, dedicated worker, or humble friend, while quietly rearranging the power structure to suit their ambitions. Working smart in the shadows also means letting others exhaust themselves. When two rivals are locked in open conflict, it is the patient observer who waits for both to weaken before stepping in to claim victory. When a group is chasing the wrong goal, the strategist allows them to continue, guiding them subtly away from the real prize until it is his alone. This is not laziness. It is efficiency in its purest form, achieving more by doing less, because every action is aimed at the heart of the matter. The clever ruler will even cultivate the image of shared labor, appearing to take on the burdens of his people. He will attend the public works, speak with the craftsmen, even dirty his hands for a moment so they believe he is one of them. But when night falls and the crowd disperses, his real work begins reviewing reports, manipulating rivals, deciding who will rise and who will be removed. His sweat is symbolic, his strategy is deadly real. Those who understand this principle rise without burning themselves out. They know the world rewards not the man who shows the most effort, but the one who controls the outcome of other men's efforts. To work smart in shadows is to see beyond the illusion of constant motion, to recognize that the true measure of work is not how much you do, but how much power it brings you when the time comes to step into the light. The world has always worshipped the image of the tireless worker, the man who labors without pause, who sacrifices his time, his body, and his dreams in the belief that his reward is inevitable. But history, as Machiavelli saw it, tells a darker truth. Hard work without strategy is servitude. Sweat without cunning feeds the ambitions of others. The powerful have always understood this, shaping the myth of effort into a tool of control, ensuring the many remain obedient while the few pull the strings. The fox will outwit the ox. The master will profit from the labor of the servant, and those who rise do so not because they work the hardest, but because they work with precision, with calculation, and with an unwavering focus on leverage over labor. The choice then is yours: remain in the light where your every effort is seen but harvested by others, or step into the shadows where the real work of power is done. For in the game of survival and dominance, the blistered hands rarely hold the crown. It rests instead in the hands that never needed to bleed for it.